My husband falsely accused me of cheating after 11 years of marriage, mocked my looks in front of my family, and said no one would ever want you anyway. I moved out with nothing but a backpack. 1 year later, when I was featured on a magazine cover, he tried to crash the launch party. I gave security a very specific instruction. Corbin and I met in college. He was charismatic and cocky, the kind of guy who dominated every room he walked into. I was the opposite. Quiet, observant. I studied studio art, he was in finance. He loved being seen, and I loved watching the world from the corner of a room. Somehow, in the chaos of college parties and late-night ramen, he noticed me. For the first few years, he was charming. Supportive, even. He encouraged my art, bragged about my sketches to his friends, told people I was going to be big someday. But somewhere along the way, that encouragement turned to sarcasm, then to silence. It wasn't one big moment. It was 1,000 tiny ones. He stopped asking about my work. Stopped celebrating my small wins. Started pointing out what I could be doing better, how I wasn't serious enough or just played with paint. At first, I chalked it up to stress. His job was demanding, and he carried himself like a man who always had to be climbing. Promotions, status, the next thing. I, on the other hand, found joy in smaller things, selling a painting on Etsy, getting into a weekend art fair, or finishing a piece I'd been stuck on for weeks. The emotional distance between us grew slowly, but steadily. Like someone leaving the room and turning the lights off behind them, one switch at a time. That night, when his family came over, I served dinner like usual. Corbin made jabs at my cooking, then shifted to my appearance. "Remember when Avellini used to turn heads," he said, chuckling as he poured himself another glass of wine. "Now, it's like, blink and you'll miss her. She blends right into the wallpaper." His mother gave a soft, nervous laugh. His brother Jude just looked down at his plate. I forced a smile that felt like glass in my mouth. The humiliation sat in my chest like a weight. Later, after the dishes were done and the guests had left, I asked him why he said that. "Jesus, Avellini," he muttered, already half undressed and checking his phone. "It was a joke. Don't be so damn sensitive. Why would you say that in front of your family?" I asked. My voice was quiet. Shaky. "Because it's true," he snapped. "Look at you. You don't try anymore. You've let yourself go. And you're getting older, Avellini. I mean, let's be honest, who's going to want you now?" The air left my lungs. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there. He went to bed. Just like that. The next day, I woke up to him accusing me of cheating. "I saw the texts," he said, holding up my phone. "Don't even try to deny it." My stomach dropped. I hadn't been texting anyone inappropriate. Just my sister and a few clients. I asked him to show me the messages. He refused. Said he didn't need to prove anything. He didn't speak to me for 3 days. Then I came home from a quick grocery run to find my clothes packed up and dumped near the front door. My sketchbooks were tossed in a paper bag like they were trash. Even the little ceramic turtle I'd made in college was cracked and wrapped in an old t-shirt. "I'm done," he said. "Take your stuff and go." I stared at him, not knowing what to say. I felt like a ghost in my own house. "Go cheat on someone else," he added as he walked away. I left that night. I stuffed what I could into a backpack, my laptop, 2 sketchbooks, a pair of jeans, my toothbrush. I didn't even grab a coat. My phone was nearly dead. I walked to the bus stop, sat there under the dim yellow streetlight, and stared at nothing. I didn't have a plan. I just needed to get away. I called Amani. She was the only person I could think of. We hadn't spoken in months, but she'd always been kind. I stayed with her for a few weeks, crashed on her couch, worked out of her garage studio, and cried when no one was around to hear it. Art became my anchor again. I poured everything into it. The grief. The confusion. The humiliation. I painted things I didn't understand, just to get them out of my head. One day, Imani introduced me to Ada, a photographer and editor for North by Northwest, a local lifestyle magazine that highlighted women creatives in the Pacific Northwest. Ada saw my work and asked if she could feature it. I hesitated at first. I still felt fragile, like I was just pretending to be okay. But then Ada said something that stuck with me: sometimes the most powerful stories are the quiet ones. They ran a feature about me, my art, my process, and yes, a little about what I'd been through. Nothing dramatic. Just honest. The article gained traction locally. People started messaging me, asking about commissions. One woman even said, "I left my own Corbin 2 months ago. Your story gave me hope." It felt surreal. A few months later, Ada called and said they wanted me on the cover for the 1-year anniversary issue. Me. On the cover. I almost said no. But Imani grabbed my shoulders and said, "You owe it to yourself." So I did it. We did a full shoot, portraits, studio shots, me holding a canvas that was inspired by the day I left. It felt like reclaiming something that had been taken. The cover was released online first, and then we had a launch party at a gallery downtown. I showed up in a floor-length emerald green dress, hair pulled back, makeup soft but strong. I looked like someone I hadn't seen in years. Someone I used to be. And that's when I got the email. It showed up the morning of the event. Just a plain RSVP response in the inbox labeled "Guest List, Launch Party." Name, Corbin Tate. +1. I stared at it for a solid minute. Not moving. Not breathing. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. Why would he even care? He'd thrown me out like I was yesterday's trash. He never responded to the article, never reached out, never said a word. And now, a year later, he wanted to show up. To my night. I didn't feel fear. Not anger either. Just a deep, simmering clarity. The kind you only get when you've walked through fire and somehow come out on the other side stronger. I closed the email, walked over to Ada, and calmly said, "Hey, if a man named Corbin Tate shows up tonight, don't let him in." She looked at me. "Do you want security to handle it?" "Yes," I said. "I want him to know he doesn't get to come back just because I finally became someone he didn't believe I could be." She nodded. "Say no more." I didn't tell Imani right away. I just focused on getting ready. Hair and makeup, checking the layout of the gallery, adjusting frames, lighting, music. People had no idea how hard I'd worked to look effortless. Underneath it all, my chest was tight. Not from fear, but from anticipation. I didn't want to run. I wanted him to see. To feel. The gallery filled fast that night. Local artists, gallery owners, small business reps, a couple of women from art school who hugged me like we hadn't just drifted apart over the years. Some of them had tears in their eyes when they saw the feature wall, a massive canvas titled "Still Standing." It was abstract, layered and bold, sharp colors and heavy textures. Jagged at the edges. But solid. Unmoving. That piece was me. I was in the middle of giving an interview when I saw the gallery's front entrance, framed in tall glass, and beyond that, him. Corbin. Dressed in a blazer I hadn't seen before, hair styled like he was trying to impress someone, and a woman I didn't recognize trailing a few steps behind him. His date? Or just someone he brought for the optics? I saw him walk toward the entrance with the confidence I remembered so well. He reached for the door handle, and it didn't budge. The security guard stepped forward, said something, and Corbin's brow furrowed. He looked through the glass again, scanning the room, and our eyes met for a fraction of a second. I didn't move. I didn't smile. I turned back to the woman interviewing me and said, "Sorry, what was your question again?" The moment broke like glass. The noise of the room came back to me. Music. Voices. Laughter. Life. A minute later, I glanced back. Corbin was still arguing with security. Gesturing. Frustrated. His date looked deeply uncomfortable. The security guard stood firm, arms crossed, stone-faced. Eventually, Corbin threw his hands up and walked away. Just like that. I exhaled. A long, silent exhale I didn't even realize I'd been holding in. That was the moment the room started to feel truly mine. I floated through conversations. Took photos with guests in front of my pieces. Drank champagne and laughed, not the polite, tight-lipped kind I used to practice at dinners with Corbin's family, but the kind that bubbled out without permission. People kept asking about the meaning behind still standing. Some guessed it was about grief. Others thought it was about resilience. One woman, a fellow artist, leaned in and said, "You made something I didn't know I needed to see." I felt seen in a way I hadn't in years. Not because I was being looked at, but because people finally understood what I'd lived through. What I'd created from it. Later that night, Imani pulled me aside, holding 2 glasses of wine. "He really came?" she asked. "Seriously?" "He did," I said, taking a sip. "Didn't make it in though." She laughed, but it wasn't a mocking laugh. It was a damn right kind of laugh. A victorious, finally kind of laugh. Then she tilted her head and said, "So, what now?" I didn't answer right away. I looked around the room. My art. My people. The space I never imagined I'd be strong enough to stand in. And I thought, not about Corbin, but about the girl who left with nothing but a backpack and a dying phone. The girl who stood under a flickering bus stop sign with no money, no plan, no one to call but a friend she hadn't spoken to in months. That girl didn't disappear. She transformed. And I wasn't done yet. Imani leaned on the gallery wall beside me, sipping her wine, eyes roaming over the room. The place was still buzzing. People chatting in corners, hands gesturing expressively as they spoke about color and texture like it was life itself. One man was standing inches from a piece I'd made during one of my hardest nights in Imani's garage. I had painted it while crying, silent tears dripping off my chin onto the canvas. And now here he was, murmuring to his partner about how intensely alive it felt. I never expected my pain to speak so loudly. I never thought anyone would listen if it did. "Do you ever miss him?" Imani asked quietly. It was a fair question. Not cruel. Just real. I took another sip. My hand was steady. I didn't have to fake that anymore. "No," I said, "but I think I miss who I thought he was." Imani nodded like she understood. Because she did. We all do, at some point, we fall in love with a version of someone that never actually existed. A carefully curated illusion. And when that illusion falls apart, we grieve it like it was real. There was no sadness in that moment. Just acceptance. A few weeks after the party, I started getting messages again. Some from people I hadn't spoken to in years. A high school friend who now lived in Denver. A distant cousin. Even my old professor from PSU reached out, saying how proud he was and asking if I'd ever considered teaching. But among the flood of congratulations and praise, one name showed up that made my stomach knot. Corbin. First it was a DM. Just one word, "Congratulations." I left it unread. Then it was an email. Longer. Apologetic. "Avellini, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I saw the article, and I saw the photos, and I just wanted to say you looked amazing. I'm proud of you. I know I wasn't the husband you needed, or deserved, and I can't even begin to unpack how badly I handled things. I've been doing a lot of reflecting. I'm in therapy now. I've realized a lot about myself. I know you probably won't respond, and I understand. I just needed to say it." Corbin, I read it twice. Then I closed it. No reply. He kept trying. Small digital nudges. Likes. Comments on mutual friends' posts. I never responded, never acknowledged him. Not out of pettiness, but because I'd already said everything I needed to say by walking away and not looking back. And honestly, I didn't have the space for his guilt. That was his burden to carry, not mine. One afternoon, while prepping for another gallery showing in Eugene, I got coffee with Ada and our mutual friend Lale. We were sitting outside a tiny cafe, the air crisp, late autumn leaves scattered across the sidewalk like confetti. I was telling them about a workshop I'd been asked to lead when Ada leaned in, resting her chin on her hand. You know, she said, I think that party was a turning point for more people than just you. I raised an eyebrow. Did you know, she continued, that after Corbin got turned away, he emailed the gallery pretending to be a reporter from an online magazine asking for a follow-up interview with you? I blinked. What? Lala nodded. Yep. I saw the email. He used a fake name, but the IP address was the same as the RSVP. He was trying to find a way in. We flagged it. There was a pause. I laughed. Not in disbelief. Not in fear. Just laughed. It felt absurd. Almost pitiful. Like watching someone fumble a magic trick you already knew the ending to. The truth was, I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I had outgrown him so completely that I couldn't even summon a reaction beyond vague annoyance. But that didn't mean the past hadn't left marks. There were still days I woke up feeling heavy. Not because I missed Corbin, but because healing isn't linear. Some mornings I still questioned whether I could really sustain this new version of myself. Whether it was all just a phase or some fleeting rebellion. And then I'd open my sketchbook. The page always answered me. I wasn't rebelling. I was returning. To myself. To the voice I'd silenced for over a decade. Corbin had spent years convincing me I wasn't enough. That my work was a hobby. That my body was a disappointment. That I was lucky to have him, even when he treated me like an accessory he didn't even care to polish. But now? People saw value in what I created. They saw strength in my lines, purpose in my brushstrokes. And more than anything, they saw me. Really saw me. A few months after the launch party, I ran into Jude, Corbin's younger brother, at an art supply store in downtown Portland. I hadn't seen him since that dinner where Corbin made those comments in front of the family. He looked nervous when he recognized me. Like I might scream at him or walk away. Instead, I nodded. Gave a small smile. I didn't hold anything against him. He was just another person caught in Corbin's orbit, trying not to get scorched. Hey, he said, a little sheepishly. I saw your magazine cover. You looked incredible. Really? Thanks, I replied. It's been a weird year. He laughed softly. I bet. There was a pause, then he added, I wanted to say, I'm sorry. For not saying something that night. At dinner. What Corbin said, it wasn't okay. I nodded again. It wasn't. He looked down, fiddled with a brush set in his hands. Anyway. I'm glad you're doing well. I am, I said. I really am. And I meant it. I had nothing to prove to anyone anymore. Not even myself. It's strange how much can change in a single year. How someone can go from being your whole world to a footnote in your story. How silence can become power. How being broken can be the thing that finally lets the light in. And even though I didn't know it then, on the night I walked out with nothing but a backpack, I was walking towards something. Not just freedom. But a life I could finally call my own. The next 6 months were quiet. Not dull, just peaceful. Productive. Full. I taught 2 workshops, finished my second collection, and started collaborating with a local nonprofit that helped women rebuild their lives after emotionally abusive relationships. I even took a trip alone, my first solo vacation ever. Just me, a rented cabin in Bend, and a suitcase full of brushes. I felt light. Clear. Corbin tried to contact me once more, this time through a mutual acquaintance, Nia, who ran a small downtown gallery where I'd exhibited before. She called me one afternoon, sounding hesitant. "I didn't know if I should bring this to you," she said, "but Corbin reached out. Said he wanted to buy one of your pieces." I blinked. "He what?" "Yeah. Said he saw a painting in your last collection, untethered, I think, and that it spoke to him. Wanted to know if he could buy it." I actually laughed out loud. "Tell him it's not for sale," I said. "It's not?" she asked. "No," I replied. "But even if it was, he still couldn't have it." I thought that was the end of it. But then an opportunity fell into my lap, one of those beautiful, poetic twists the universe seems to save for the people who've finally learned to stop begging for closure. A small art collective in Portland, Thread and Frame, had been looking to expand. They wanted to open a second location, somewhere central, somewhere symbolic. The space they had their eye on? Corbin's former office. Not the building. The actual suite. Turns out, the boutique finance firm he worked for had downsized, and his division had been relocated. His old office? Empty. Affordable. In a prime arts district thanks to a city rezoning plan. I toured it out of curiosity. It was sterile. Cold. A mix of leftover blinds, carpet with furniture marks, and dusty built-in shelving. But the lighting was good. The bones were solid. And the thought of turning that space into something vibrant, open, and creative? It made my heart race in the best way. I said yes. Opening day for the new Thread and Frame gallery space was a dream. My work was front and center, and the theme for the launch collection was transformation. We held an open house, live painting, even a panel talk about how creative expression plays a role in personal healing. The place buzzed with energy. Not just mine, dozens of other artists, all with stories woven into their canvases. The walls that had once echoed with Corbin's phone calls and closed-door meetings now vibrated with color and life. The best part? He showed up. I was in the back helping reset one of the installations when Imani popped her head around the divider, phone in hand, face lit up with amusement. Guess who just walked in? I didn't need to ask. I just smiled. I stepped out slowly, heels clicking on the polished floor, and spotted him immediately. Corbin. Alone this time. Wearing a shirt that looked slightly too tight around the collar, his hair styled like he'd tried a bit too hard. He was looking at Untethered again, the one painting he'd asked about. He turned as I approached, surprised to see me. "Avellini," he said, voice cautious, careful. "Corbin." He gestured toward the painting. "I didn't realize this was your new space." I nodded. "I know. It's different." "Nice. Very different from when I used to work here." "I know," I said again, but with a small smile. That was the point. He cleared his throat, trying to reset the dynamic. "Listen, I just wanted to say again how proud I am of you. You've really come into yourself." I nodded. "I have." There was a pause. He looked around, clearly trying to read the room, maybe fish for some deeper conversation, a chance to patch something. I didn't offer it. He looked back at the painting. "Is it still not for sale?" "No," I said, my tone light but firm. "But thanks for your interest." Another pause. He looked smaller in that moment. Not defeated. Not tragic. Just real. Without the power he used to hold over me. Like any other man who lost something he thought would always be his. He finally said, "Well, I guess I should get going. Take care, Corbin." He walked out of his old office, my gallery space now, without looking back. That night, we celebrated. Not just the gallery opening, but everything. The last 2 years of clawing my way out from under someone else's shadow. The quiet wins. The loud ones. The woman I'd become. Imani raised her glass during the small after-party we threw upstairs. To Avellini, she said, eyes warm. For walking out with nothing but a backpack, and building an entire life with it. Everyone clinked glasses. I took a sip and looked around at the space. My art. My people. My peace. That was the best revenge. No yelling. No breakdowns. No pointing fingers. Just success. Soft. Steady. Unshakable. I never needed him to regret losing me. But it was deeply satisfying to know that he did. And that by the time he realized what he'd thrown away, I had already built something better.